Hey everybody, Blandon Collectibles here, back for another statue unboxing review for you. Today's statue is made by Kinetiquettes, and it's going to be of one of my favorite gaming franchises, Monster Hunter. A franchise that I have loved and enjoyed since 2004. Now today we're taking a look at 4 different statues. First we have the female hunter, the male hunter, and their feline companion, the Palico. Also, later on we will end things off with the Zinogre statue. First to be unboxed is going to be the cute but deadly Palico. You'll see I have number 5 out of 286, not that many made worldwide. And then on this base here, we will see just primarily a rocky theme, and there is the notch which the Palico will key into later. Unlike everyone else in these statues, the Palico is getting absolutely pulverized, as you can see here. So there is that steel rod and the notch that'll key him onto the base, and we'll take a look closely at all the different armor details. Now, I'm not as familiar with the Zinogre Palico armor, so I can't really speak to it exactly. There's a notch on the back that the weapon will attach to, but from what I can recall, because I don't really remember attaching this kind of armor to my Palico, it looks completely accurate to me, or what I would imagine it looked like in the series. Sculpted separately is the weapon. Now, this is one of the coolest things about unboxing the statue is normally I know these weapons from a 3D perspective, right? So I don't get to see them in person, to hold them, to see all the angles. So it's really neat to be able to see these in real life, how they were sculpted. Attaches really nicely to the back. Once on there, extremely secure. You could shake it around. Nothing's falling off because that magnet and notch fit together perfectly. One thing I will praise Kinetiquettes on is the fact that we have a really balanced statue. I can shake, move, twirl this around, and he's not falling off balance at all here, so good engineering by the team. Up next is the female hunter in a very dynamic pose. So again, at number 5, we can see the Monster Hunter logo was able to be fit on the bottom of this base. Again, themed after just a rocky base, and we have that notch there, which her foot will key into with a much thicker steel rod than the Palico. As I mentioned before, wow, did Kinetiquettes choose a dynamic pose to go with for her. So as I mentioned, the steel rod is a lot thicker because this is going to be a lot more weight going on to support, and she needs to have that steel rod to be sure that the pose doesn't compromise over time or doesn't bend or warp. But we'll see the armor itself is 100% accurate to how we see it in the series. Again, there's certain parts and aspects that I really don't get to appreciate. The head there was sculpted separately, and also if we take a look at the hand, you can see there's kind of the holes that line up. So she'll definitely be holding a weapon midair. In the series, I can personally say I've only ever played male hunters, but I'm sure there's many out there who have played this exact female character, the way that they brought her to life. So really good, a really realistic feel to her, but not too realistic. It does feel like it jumped straight out of the game. In the series, I primarily play greatsword and longsword, but for those of you that use a switch axe, here is that is the weapon of choice that she will be using today. Now on the bottom, we'll see the handle, and this part slides off, and that's going to help us to secure this in between her hands. So we pull it off, and then we'll just slide it down that circular holes that they had lined up on her hands. But again, really cool to get to see all these different parts and pieces brought to life in a way that we can hold and tangibly see. One of my favorite parts about this statue is the fact that all around, especially the paint application, the way that it was done, it all feels natural and organic. It feels like we were taken just from a scene out of the video game right as you are fighting and hunting the Zinogre. So it's really cool how they were able to capture that and bring it to life here. So this is definitely a more flashy pose, right? Right, she's about to swing right down on the Zinogre and land a hard-hitting blow. With her connected, it is nice that they have this separate base, but later on, look forward to everything coming together as the pieces will connect to the Zinogre directly and have a seamless scene going on. Next up, we'll take a look at the male hunter. Definitely an armor set that I am very familiar with and have used many times throughout the series. Same old for this piece right here, right? Rock, notch, keyhole, and then for the male hunter, the arms and the head was sculpted separately. This is so amazing to get to see this in person. Again, the paint job that they chose, the colors that they did, it just makes everything feel like it jumped right out of the video game. Big props to whoever the 3D sculptor was for this statue. What an amazing job you did at taking care of every single little detail that makes this armor set go together, from right the black cloth outfit underneath and all the different parts of the Zinogre that are scattered all throughout here. For the arms and the head as well, right there, some notches with magnets in there. And then we have the sword and shield is going to be the weapon of choice for this hunter right here. Awesome to see the red rope that's attaching the actual shield to the arm. Again, super cool to be able to see these weapons. Now, one of the things about Monster Hunter weapons, right, is they feel a little ridiculous and sometimes unrealistic, but not these here. They all feel quite tangible and realistic. This one reminds me of that of the Palico sword, just more of the hunter's version of it. I tend to lose track of time sometimes when pre-ordering statues, but I think this one took about a year and a half to create, and the time they spent doing that, they definitely had a high quality factory working on this. I don't see any issues at all quality control wise. Everything feels right on point, no paint bleeding at all. As I mentioned before, everything does come together with magnets. Now, one of the things that I love, again, with the female hunter and also with the male, is the dynamic feel. For this one, it does feel like he's almost stepping back or evading a blow to be able to land a slash directly afterwards. Literally, the only defect to this whole statue is the base doesn't seem to balance very well for the male hunter, but thankfully for me, I wanted to be using this base. Later on, he's going to be connected directly and right next to the Zinogre. Speaking of which, I want to take a moment to talk about the box, right? I normally don't talk about boxes, but this whole statue just oozes of a premium feel to it. So on the corners, we will see they have these metallic guards that will be protecting your statue, and also a nice attention to detail. We have the Zinogre scales that are scattered all throughout. Just a really premium feeling box. For the bottom of Zinogre's base, they did a really good job at making sure it had kind of the footprint that's necessary to house everything, right? They could have made a really large and round base, but instead they made exactly what you need to showcase. You'll see a lot of the claws or the Zinogre's paw is going to be hitting right there. This piece of rock is going to come out later where the male hunter can key into if you'd like, and if you don't, you can also put that back on there to cover it up. But awesome paint shading done throughout here. We can see that notch in the back that Zinogre's foot's going to key into. To bring some of the ecology to life, they did sculpt a few grassy bits separately. Now for these, you'll notice on the bottom, they have color coding so you know where to put them. This is the blue one. There's also a red and white one. I will notate that I did use some blue tack on the bottom of this to make sure that they did sit into place securely. Coming up, we have the Thunder Wolf Wyvern himself, Zinogre. It has been an experience to be able to see the female hunter, the male, the Palico, the weapons, but to hold this beast in my hands is a whole nother experience. It's really cool to be able to see all these little details that you don't get to appreciate in game because he's typically trying to pulverize you. This little hole there is where an effect piece will go later. And one cool thing, I think this is what this is for. So on the very back, you'll see some of the blue holes on the back parts of those scales. I definitely think that is to represent those thunder bugs that he does drop and use all the time to attack us. Though I think this would have been a pain to engineer. It would have been neat to have maybe swap out options where you can have the tail that's been sliced off or the horns that have been broken. Again, I mean, you're pretty much going to want to see this monster in a complete form. So definitely not something I think I want in the end, but maybe it would have been cool to see certain parts where you could swap out to make them look broken. As you may have noticed, one of the arms and also some of the claws were sculpted separately. Now, the ones that they have sculpted separately are the different versions that kind of sit out a little bit. So definitely a liability during the shipping process if they were to sculpt those all as one piece. Here's a close-up look at these longer and more deadly looking claws that look extremely realistic, right? Exactly what you imagine seeing in the world of Monster Hunter. There goes one there. We also have two that were sculpted in this front section. And then if we go ahead and also spin this around in a moment, we'll go ahead and attach the final one that they have on there. Before, when getting to do an overview of the Zinogre, it's kind of difficult to hold and showcase because it's such a big piece. So because this arm was sculpted separately, we can get to kind of appreciate the details a little bit more. A very thick and large magnet impacted at the bottom of that notch. And it's crazy to see. So the claws of the fangs for this one were sculpted on here all together. How deadly does that look? That is the claw that pounces and stomps you all the time in the game. But man, how deadly it is to actually see these things. So that little hole there is also going to be for an effect piece that we're going to install later on. Probably one of the single most coolest pieces that we can take a look at close up is gonna be this Zinogre head. So just similar to the arm, we have that notch and large magnet. And again, getting to appreciate all the details of the head for this beast. You can see all the different fangs, the gums, the tongue, the fur, the horns, everything all together. Even the way that they have his, his nose, right, his snout, that we have the beast. So if you do notice as well, if you do a close-up, the eyes have a little bit of gloss on them, so that brings a level of realism that you can appreciate. One thing I was worried about is a nasty seam line because they had the head sculpted separately, but that is non-existent the way it flows together. Now, it wouldn't be Zinogre without having some thunder effects sculpted separately, and wow, the way that the engineering was done for these effect pieces is just mind-blowing. This one specifically, it does have a steel rod in the bottom. Not all of them are like that. Most of them are just standard notches that fit into little holes without a base, but this one specifically does have it, and again, these other ones back here, they just slide right in. I absolutely love how they were able to bring to life these lightning effect pieces. Now, one I wanted to specifically talk about is this one right here, the crazy engineering behind this one. So there's 4 different notches that go on right around the front claw area. And there's also one little hole up top here where the topmost effect piece will slide into there, and they both kind of lean and support on each other. This one is a little tricky to kind of figure out where everything goes together because it all has to kind of fit in perfectly. And then the top effect piece I wasn't able to capture on camera perfectly, but just goes into that top claw. And then it also connects to that hole that was on the top of that thunder piece. Now, one cool thing that we mentioned before, right? We can remove this rock little notch piece. Then we can begin to assemble everything and have the other hunters attached to here. So we'll set this aside. Then we will bring in our male hunter, take him off of the base and slide him right into here. I love it. I love how dynamic this looks. Exactly like, again, he's trying to evade the blow of that claw that's being lifted up in the air. And normally, right, you would immediately go to a counterattack to be able to go after the Zinogre himself. Now, I forgot to mention before, but there's a piece of removable fur up here. We take this off. Again, it has a magnet on the back to attach itself to on there. And as you would expect, if we grab the female hunter, she just keys right into place. Now, she is extremely dynamically in the air, about to come down with that switch axe. One cool thing is, right, if you don't have as much display space, you can remove her and put her on the side base. And as for the Palico, he doesn't have a specific slot on the statue, but you can kind of perfectly notch him right into the side here. It kind of fits really well and tucks in. It looks natural, like it was a part of the base. As always, the Palico's taking one for the team. One thing to notate is this statue does not come with any LEDs. I just love to play around sometimes with the LED strip lights to see how it would look. I definitely plan on eventually customizing this somehow, some way to bring that to life. Maybe I'll share that in a future video. But if we take a look over here, right, we can see the Palico just getting wrecked by that claw coming down. And we have the male hunter again perfectly evading, about to attack. And my gosh, the female hunter coming down with that deadly blow with the switch axe. Also to mention, here is a pin that they included. If you ordered everything that you saw here, you got the Electrifying Bundle, which came with this pin, right? It looks exactly like what you would see in the hunter's log of the icon used for Zinogre. So super cool. Also, something else that just further adds to the premium feel with this statue. Again, one of the most amazing experiences with this one is it felt like a premium experience. We have this glorious looking artwork. I have never once wanted to frame any artwork that came with the statue except for this one. I will definitely be getting a frame to be able to showcase this very much near the statue. I love how this has to be the concept art that they reference to bring everything to life. This was my first Kinetiquettes statue unboxing, and it definitely won't be my last. I really love and am a fan of what this company does. Everybody, I hope you had a good time today. I'll see you in the next video. As always, do what you love and love what you do. Bam out.